Welcome to Rich Baker and Friends, episode number 4. I'm joined by Susan Ruth, who's got so many descriptors that could be associated with her, like musician, singer-songwriter, artist, actor, podcaster. I don't even know all the things.
I guess it says artist.
Yeah, you've got so many things. So I don't think we're going to cover your whole life in this time because I think that'd be impossible. But pretty much any segment of your life is super interesting. I'm excited to have you on. Thanks for being on my show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Happy quarantine, everybody. All right. Susan, we could start anywhere, but I want to start first with music because you seem to be an extremely prolific musician. If you get on your website, I mean, it's just like you can keep scrolling at all the songs. And are those albums that we're seeing like whole albums, or are they individual songs?
So if you're talking about on the discography part of the website, yeah. So that is the album covers of albums that my songs have been on. So wow. And then it lists the songs underneath. Yeah.
So you've been on a lot of, and I mean, some of those, and I didn't even know, I was just researching you a little bit before this, like you had songs featured on MTV shows.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, I have. Yeah. It's funny, those came about in such a strange manner. And I tell this story because I think it goes to show that nobody pushes your business like you do. I had been watching some show on MTV, and I thought, I wonder who the music supervisors are for this. And so I waited for the credits to roll, and then I found the name of the music supervisor for that show, and then I did the Google search and found, who the Murray Burnham, whatever it is. And this was a long time ago. And basically put a kit together. And I used to, in the beginning of my career, I used to pretend to be my manager, my booking agent, and I had different names. I had accents. And
wow.
Yeah, I had an English girl, Jennifer Smith.
Oh my God, what did she sound like?
Well, she would call and try and get into places like, I remember, this is a good story. Jennifer Smith called Plan B, Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston's company, and was trying to get into their catalog, their music catalog for, you'd send them stuff so that when they go through trying to find songs for their projects, they would be in the pile.
Sure.
And I was in a Nordstrom. I was in the bathroom in a Nordstrom, and my phone rings, and I was like, a California number, and I opened it up, and it was a woman from Plan B asking to speak with Jennifer, and I was like, please hold. Like, what the fuck? So I had to take, can I swear? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I did a meeting in the bathroom. It's pretty funny. But anyway, yeah, so with the MTV stuff, I just sent it along, and they ended up playing, I think I ended up with my How to Say Goodbye album. 5 of those songs got on MTV shows. And
wow.
Yeah, and so it just goes to show you don't, unless somebody's just got to go for it. Like, who cares? And in a weirder twist of fate, about 10 years later, because I've been doing this a long time, I was invited to a dinner here in California. This is before I moved here. And the dinner had a bunch of people. It was like 12 or 13 of us sitting around, and at one point in the dinner party, everybody switched seats over so we could just kind of get to know other people. It was a casual dinner. It was movie people and music people and all this. I ended up sitting across from this guy, Brian, who to this day is a dear friend. And we started chatting. He's like, what do you do? And I said, the music, blah, blah, blah. And he said, oh, okay. And I said, how about you? He said, well, I'm in television. I said, oh, that's cool. And he said, yeah, I used to work for MTV a really long time. I said, oh, really? I said, oh, that's funny. I had some songs on there. Guess who the guy was that picked my songs?
What?
It was him. He's like, oh, my God, I'm the one that picked those songs. He's like, that's you? I'm like, that's me. He's like, what?
Oh, my God.
Isn't that a crazy happenstance?
Yeah, I love it. Oh, that's amazing. So you would literally like be on the phone and be like, yes, Susan Ruth has some albums she'd like to put out there, stuff like that.
That's exactly right. And it was probably a shit accent too. So who knows? Maybe they just, felt sorry for me, but I did the
probably
best.
Not. I don't think anyone is on the phone going, wait, is like suspect. Is this a real British accent? Like,
I know. But obviously you got to be scrappy.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not, that's awesome, and I'm not taking away from that. But I read a lot of autobiographies, especially of actors and musicians, and whatnot, and that is not an uncommon theme that I've heard, especially when people are kind of early in their career, and because there's something about Hollywood that people don't know. Hollywood really likes to work with people who already have made it. It's the classic,
right?
What's that?
It's true everywhere. Get on the train that's already left the station.
Yeah, I mean, it's that classic, like, how do I get the job without the experience, or the experience without the job? And, like, what you did was, like, and so many others have done, you fake, like, I already have an assistant, I already have a team, or whatever, and then you just make it happen.
Yeah.
Well, and so, like, your process, just to, because, I love to just teach people, that's just who I am. So you had to make something first. Like, as an artist, you got to create the songs. Yep. Right. But then that's not enough. So, but like you do that and then you go one step further. And, okay, what am I thinking? Okay, let's find a music supervisor. Let's send them some stuff. Let's just because so you're being creative when you make the thing, but you're also being creative when you try and get the thing out there.
Yeah, it really depends on what you're doing when you're going into it. So when I write music, there are different ways that I could go my approach. I could be doing it for fun, just to get an idea out of my brain pan. I could read that someone is going to be looking for a record, or maybe a movie is looking for a song that's in the future, and go in with that mindset and say, okay, we kind of have this idea. You don't want to control the right too much, but you have an idea of something you're going toward. Or it's one of those things where you and another person come together and they're like, I have an idea, and you say, I have an idea, and you kind of work out the middle ground of that idea. So it just depends, really. I don't think there's a set. It's not for me. I'm sure for a lot of people it's very regimented. When I lived in Nashville, I 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, got up, had my breakfast, went to my writes, had 2 to 3 writes a day, came home.
When you say I had 2 to 3 writes a day, what does having a write mean?
Well, especially in the Nashville mode of songwriting, either you or your publisher sets up songwriting appointments with other writers, and you come together, and sometimes with producers, and you go in and you have that write, and it's usually a 3-hour-ish, and then you go to the next one, and then you go to the next one.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know a very little bit about Nashville songwriting only because I read Willie Nelson's autobiography and he talked about it in there. But I mean, I think that world largely is wholly unknown outside of the songwriters. So it's like, if I'm understanding it right, as writers, you're basically always collaborating or always trying to collaborate or attempting to collaborate with other people. And then if anything blows up, then you kind of ride that wave, but then you're always kind of working in the lab, keep writing and whatnot. Is that accurate?
It never stops. And you have favorite writers that you really have chemistry with, but you also get into rooms with people you've never written with as well, or artists who've never even written a song. And that's a really interesting experience, because sometimes you get with artists, not only have they never written a song, but they don't really listen to music, but they don't even know who they are yet. So that can be a challenge. And you end up writing most of it and then putting their name on it, because that's just the way it works.
Well, and that's such a creative, like Hollywood does that too, right? Where it's like names get attached to screenplays that were never involved in the actual writing process.
Yeah.
Are you, and I mean, this is so fascinating because like, are you writing the music or the lyrics and then your partner's writing the other, or are you writing both and they're just collaborating with you, or is it different every time, or how's it work?
I'm a principal top liner, they're called. So I write lyrics and melodies are my forte, most especially lyrics. I love words. They're my favorite thing. So, and I can play a piano and I can play guitar, but when I get in a room with somebody that really plays guitar, then I'm not, my ego is not, I don't think I know more than those people. And in fact, my creative flow happens quite rapidly when somebody else takes over the instrument, because for me, it's more of a struggle, the instrument part.
Okay.
There's somebody that really knows their instrument, that frees me up. You have to know who you are, to have a pretense and to have posturing in a creative situation, it doesn't really serve anyone. And the good news is that you bring what you're great at to a room and then shut the fuck up and listen to the other people what they do. And then maybe you're learn something and it'll be really exciting, and you keep working on the stuff that you're not as good at on your own time, so that you're not you're not taking away from their time.
That's brilliant. And I don't know if it's if a lot of other creatives have this, but I do feel like the population who's outside of it thinks this too. I know I did. I would always assume, you know, without ever looking it up, because why would you do something as silly as that? I would always assume that, like, if you're, you know, a songwriter, then you're just kind of by yourself, sitting with a pen and a paper and a guitar, and then the finished song happens, and you come out of the room and you're like, I did it, right?
Yeah, I think John Mayer certainly does that. And I have written, every album I have put out, there's a song, at least one, usually one, once I think there was two, that I write by myself. You know, because I can do that. I can do that, and I can sit down, but I really enjoy the communion of songwriting. And same with writing. I enjoy the communion of, like, writing with other people in other realms or whatever. Now, when I'm writing, like, I'm working on my screenplay or working on my book or whatever, then I'm by myself. That's a solo art. But for me, but there's something about the collaboration of music. I love sitting next to the piano next to somebody, and they're playing something really beautiful, and the words can just sort of fall out. I love that so much. It's my passion. But if I'm a John Mayer, then I probably work better hunkering down and doing the whole thing by myself.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a different process. Or a Joni Mitchell or a J.D. Souther, who also was an incredible collaborator. But then he wrote, I just had him on the podcast, right? So, nice. J.D. Souther wrote some of the most famous Eagles songs you ever heard, you know, but he also wrote You're Only Lonely by himself, you know, Roy Orbison. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. So It just depends.
Wow, yeah. That's amazing.
But painting for me is a solo art.
Okay.
When I paint, it's not collaboration.
Mm-hmm. You do so many things. Let's go back. Are you from Nashville originally?
What?
Are you from Nashville originally?
No, I grew up in Seattle for the most part. We traveled around a lot because of my parents' careers, but for the most part, grew up in Seattle.
Seattle, right? And so did you find your way to Nashville by, like, I want to be a songwriter, that's where songwriters go?
Yeah, I had been an artist and was pretty successful doing that stuff, and big fish, small pond sort of thing, you know, and doing some good touring and having some mild radio play and all that. And the School of Hard Knocks took a couple lumps on me, and found myself thinking, what the hell am I doing this for? I'm working so hard, and it's a pretty thankless, here's the thing about being a creative. You have to really want it, because if you go into it thinking I'm going to be rich and famous, the tiniest percentile get that, right? The tiny. So there needs to be my disease, my sickness is that I have to create things.
Yeah.
Do I wish I could not be that person all the time? I mean, sure, but
who would you be if you could have your wish? Like, what would that look like?
I think about that. I think about my friends with quote unquote normal jobs who know what day of the week it is, and I think nice. Now we're all in the same playing field, though. Nobody knows what day it is. So.
Right? Yeah. It's like days are just happening. The sun comes up, sun goes down. We don't know. What's a calendar?
You definitely have to have a passion, and you can't really think about the outcome. That sounds silly, and especially I look at kids today. I sound so old, but I look at
He's done kids today.
But it's astounding to me. I didn't know who I was at 15, and these kids are like, they have their YouTube channels and they're making millions of dollars and all this stuff. But I think, when I was 15, I was still climbing up trees, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I'm 38 and I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, so I get it.
Crazy. I forgot your question already because I went in that long rambling tangent,
but so you moved, so you were touring as like a performing artist.
Yeah, and so some stuff went down, and I thought, and then a friend of mine in Nashville, well, actually my friend was in Seattle, called me up and said, what are you doing? And I said, woe is me. And she said, I have a friend in Nashville, RJ Meacham. He works for Curb Records, and he's a songwriter, and you should start writing with him. And I thought, well, what have I got to lose? So I flew to Nashville several times and started this writing relationship. And RJ, during one of our writes, said, you're a really good songwriter. You should live in Nashville. And I thought, okay. So I moved to Nashville. And here's the
tough convincing.
Yeah. Here's the thing about Nashville, though, is that I don't care what style of music you write, and I've said this in a million different interviews, bar none, the greatest education in songwriting is to be found in that city. I mean, I don't care if you write pop, jazz, contemporary, Americana, country, whatever it is, what you learn. When I got to Nashville, I was very accomplished already as far as, like, I'd won awards. I'd swept the Seattle Music Awards as a songwriter, as a performing artist, and like all this stuff. I had all these accolades, all sorts of, like, you know, femme music, the Kings of A&R, like all these people were saying all these very nice things. But when I got to Nashville, I remember the first night I was there and I went to a show at a bar. It was Dan McGuinness, Irish pub. And they were having one of those things where, you know, band after band gets up there. And I just sat there and I thought, wait, what? I thought, I know nothing. And so for the first 2 years, I volunteered at various music places, like for the Recording Academy. And I had come in, when I was in Seattle, I was a member, I was on the board of governors for NARS, for the Recording Academy, the people that do the Grammys, as a songwriting governor. But when I got to Nashville, I volunteered for the Songwriting Association. I volunteered for the NARS people. I volunteered and I shut the hell up. And I just thought, you know, I'm going to learn some stuff. You can't learn anything if you're constantly talking.
So as far as like, I mean, obviously you still had the skills that you had, but like as far as being in the scene, you started at level 1 when you got there. As far as just like,
even though I was pretty far along in Seattle, when I got to Nashville, I understood quite rapidly. And I think I knew that even going in, even before I saw the level of talent there, but that I had a lot to learn. And the only way to learn something is to listen. So instead of asking what people can do for me, I decided to ask what I could do for people. But that's kind of my motto, you know, that's anyway. But anyway, I learned so much. I mean, masterclass, songwriting masterclass living there for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so as a painter, when did that start?
That was a whim. I feel like I'm talking about myself so much.
That's called an interview.
It's so weird. I'm so used to asking other people questions.
Thanks for switching roles. I appreciate it.
Very weird. So it was 2007, and I woke up one morning. I didn't study art. I liked going to museums and stuff. I love looking at art and sculpture and such, but I never studied it or really paid any attention. And I woke up one morning and I thought, I wonder if I could paint. So I went to the art store and I bought supplies. And I called up my friend David Guidera, who's an exceptional painter. And I said, hey man, I want to try painting. And he went, oh, okay, sure. I said, can I come over there to your studio? And he said, sure. So I went to his studio. And because of how he painted, that's how I painted. He would tape the canvas on the ceiling or on the floor and like flat, and then paint that way. So I was like, oh, okay, that's how you do it? Sure. So I put the canvas on the floor and taped it down and I started painting. And he came into the room because he was painting in that room and I was painting in this room. And he came in and I said, I think I'm done. And I looked at it and he looked at it and he said, you're a painter. And then that started that. And I just kept painting.
And I mean, it's not just something you do for fun. I mean, you get paid to do this. Like, this is a profession. Mm-hmm. How did you go from painting something on the floor for the first time to getting commissioned to paint something?
Well, I started putting on my own shows. You know, I had an interesting experience. I won't say her name, but a very well-known galleryist and curator at a gallery in Nashville. She had heard that I was painting, and she said, oh, I'd like to come see your work. And I was like, great. So she came over and I had all these pieces on the floor. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get a gallery show. And I just started, you know. And she said, this is really great. She loved the work. And then she said, where did you get your MFA? And I said, I don't have an MFA. I just started painting. And she's like, oh, we only have people with their MFAs in our gallery. And I thought, oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But I said, okay. And then I decided, why do I need somebody else to take half my money to tell me whether or not they think something is good? So I started putting on my own shows in people's houses, and like the playrooms of condo associations of my friends. And
wow.
I just a couple in a cafe. I just started doing my own shows, and people started buying them. And that
the equivalent of like playing music out of your garage, you did in the art world.
Yeah.
Wow.
Here's the thing: is people will tell you until the day is long how something won't work, or why something is wrong, or how to do it. But that's their story, and they're entitled to it. but they don't get to write your story. My story is mine. I'm writing it as I go. And I can choose to believe what other people's stories are for me, or I can just keep writing my own story. That's the best way I can put it.
Inspirational. Oh my God, girl. You should, I know that you're used to asking the questions, but when you talk, it's gold. It's absolutely gold. So speaking of that.
My face, but I wash my hands. It's fine.
Yeah. If you wash your hands, I think you're good. Right?
Touch my face.
So how'd the podcasting start? You've been doing that for a while too.
Yes. Okay. Well, that came about because there had been another shooting. There were so many. There have been so many. That's the one upshot of everyone staying home. I guess nobody's getting shot at.
Truth.
Anyway, I was listening to some broadcast about. I was trying to remember which shooting it was. I should be able to figure it out because of when this was. It was 2016, and my first episode aired in July of 2016. So whatever, go backwards a month or two, whatever happened then, that was the one. But I was on the phone with my dad, and I was so upset. My dad's one of my best friends. My parents live in Seattle, and my dad and I talk all the time. And he's very grounding and very wise. And I was sobbing and saying, I just don't get it. I don't understand why we do this to each other. Why do humans do this to each other? It makes such little sense.
Yeah.
Everyone's in pain, and we're all lonely. But it's always amazing to me that people's reaction to that, instead of, it's like that old, from the Vietnam era, the person that put the flower in the gun.
Yeah, the flower power thing, yeah.
Why do more people not, and I get it, that's like a whole thing, but so I was very upset, and I'm talking to my dad, and he's trying to calm me down, and I said, I was like, I don't know what to do. I feel so helpless, and he, of course, in his wisdom said, we got to keep looking for the good, and you can't let this stuff get to you like this. And I didn't know how to not let it get to me. And so I decided the only way that I know how to combat the wave of disassociation and people treating each other unkindly, or people othering before they same. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you have red hair. Ooh, instead of, oh, you have a nose. You know what I mean? Or whatever. So that for me was the moment. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to start talking to people. And regardless of what they think versus what I think, I'm going to listen to what they have to say. And I may not agree with them. And I may say like, oh, I don't agree with you because this.
Sure.
I'm going to fight them about it. And I'm not going to argue. The space that is given in listening is the space where growth happens. And I really, truly believe that. And so that was going into the podcast. That was my goal, is to, if the people listening to the show, and even the people, I've learned so much about myself through these conversations that I've had, but the people listening to the show, if they can just even if it happens for a hot second, that they think, oh, wow, I've thought that before, or I've felt that way before, especially with somebody that they consider themselves complete opposites of. Mm-hmm. That's when the paradigm shift starts to happen. And I want to be a part of this solution. I want to be a part of that.
I love it.
Yeah, that was how it came to be. And now it's been almost 4 years.
You've been doing this for 4 years? How many episodes?
It'll be 4 in July. I think I just put out 202.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm honored to have been one of your guests on your podcast. Your podcast is so
a really fun conversation.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm halfway listening through your latest episode with Lauren Holiday, and her story is insane. You tend to find people, like, do you curate it in, like, do you kind of, like, know people's story a little bit and go, oh, this is juicy as heck, or do you just get them on and then just start asking?
It's both. And sometimes, like, with Lauren, she started to tell me a little bit of her story when I met her, just sort of the random cocktail conversation.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God, this is amazing. Will you be on the show? So sometimes it's people tell me about other people. Sometimes I eavesdrop on something. Sometimes I read an article and I follow that lead. So it's just different. I knew a little, I didn't know the extent of Lauren's story. I knew a little bit. And the thing is I don't want to know so much that I know more than my guest. I want to be as excited as the people listening as I'm learning in the moment too.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. So you mentioned that in all these episodes that you've learned a lot about yourself. Can you give me like an example or two of like one thing that you've learned from yourself during the course of 4 years of episodes?
Well, part of it is that whole thing about listening to people that are different than you.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who you are until you know who you're not, is part of it. And to be okay with that. I think there's a big fear around difference because we're constantly trying to find our tribe.
Yeah.
And if suddenly there's somebody that doesn't quite represent my tribe, that might be scary to me. What does that mean? It's that thing of like, I learned along the way, it doesn't matter what anybody, it's that thing about writing your story. It doesn't matter what other people think of me. It's because I'm able to sit with this person and hear their story, and it's just their story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I've learned a lot about listening. I've learned a lot about patience. I've learned self-care through this. I love science. I find it fascinating. So like I get a real kick out of the neuroscientists that are on, or the virologists and epidemiologists. Like I love all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
To me, I think the biggest thing is life is hard. It's really hard, and it's harder for some people than for others. But to hear these people's stories and to hear what some people have not only survived, but been bigger than, risen above, and embraced their pain and their sorrow and their sadness, and took that one more freaking step out the door.
Mm-hmm.
It tells me that I can do it too, Yeah. And I had moments where I didn't want to take that step out the door, and it's a nice, we're not alone. I mean, that's really the bottom line. We're not, it feels so lonesome so much, but we're not alone.
Have you noticed this? I think I've considered myself in quarantine for, I think, 3.5 weeks now. And I know everyone's got like maybe a different start date, but it's been about that. And I feel like I have connected more with people online and on the phone and whatnot during this quarantine than I was before the quarantine.
Yeah.
Do you have that sense at all?
It's my experience as well. I just got back from that walk, and my roommate and I, we practice the social distancing, not with each other because we live in the same house. So
sure, yeah.
Abide by that. But anyone we pass, we give the wide breath. We smile, we wave, how are you doing? And because that's that thing, is we're in this together. And I see on Facebook people, firstly, there's the conspiracy people. And then secondly, there's like, oh, our government's just trying to facilitate hate and division and all this stuff. Well, newsflash, that was there before.
Yep.
How you deal with the thing at hand is how you deal with it. You can choose to steal a line from Mr. Rogers. You can choose to see the good in the world too.
Yeah.
You can see the neighbors leaving groceries on people's front door, or saying, hey, does anybody need me to pick up? You can see people putting on online concerts and improv shows, and you can see the things that are being created, and you can see a billion Zoom conversations that I have not FaceTimed and Zoomed this much maybe in my entire life. I
certainly haven't.
Has a Zoom today. Like, they never do that shit. It's, we're all going to get on from our different houses. And I actually I asked this of my roommate. I said, what do you think it is that, because I like to post things on my Facebook wall that make people think about stuff, and I think the one I'm going to do today is, what is something that you thought you needed that you realized you didn't, and vice versa. The thing that you didn't think you needed that you really did. And nice. The weirdest thing about this whole mess is that I do think it is causing a lot of reevaluation, and also a lot of gifting of self, gifting of connection. How are you? Are you doing okay? Even if it's a text to like your friend you haven't talked to in 2 years, are you okay out there in the world?
Yeah. I have a friend who moved to Europe about a year or so ago, and he texted me yesterday, and he's like, do you want to do an online poker tournament with a bunch of other people? And like, I couldn't afford it, but I mean, it was just like, oh yeah, like we could have done this 6 months ago, but like we didn't. And but because we're all stuck, wherever and stuck maybe, like because we're here, we're quarantined. Like it just, we're thinking outside of the box and like, oh yeah, I could do this. Cause even though, you and I live, it's funny, we're Zooming, but we're less than a mile apart geographically. Yeah. And every one of my guests so far has been people in LA, but I mean, I'm going to start bringing on people from everywhere because wwhy not?
Exactly.
It's the same technology.
But you and I are gregarious and social by nature anyway. I mean, I laugh. I say I'm an extroverted introvert because I do really well by myself. I enjoy my own company. But I also, I love strangers. I've never met us. They're just, to me, I'm like, what's your story? Tell me all about you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But for some people, this is a tricky time, especially people that really need touch and need that to be not alone with their own thoughts. So I get that that's hard for some people.
Yeah.
And for those of you that are like that are listening, all I can say is just try to take that first step and just, make a phone call, do a FaceTime, whatever it is to help you through that. Foster a dog maybe. I mean, I'm not really even sure, but I think touch is a big one for people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that just real quick because when you said I'm an extroverted introvert or introverted extrovert, I can't remember which way you worded those, but I mean,
I'm an extroverted introvert for sure.
You're an extroverted introvert. I think I'm an introverted extrovert. Because like I love, just like you, I love meeting strangers. It's funny because, until you really start thinking about it, talking to other people, it's easy for us to think that whatever we experience is what other people experience too. But like, I love going to parties where I don't know anyone and just going up and just being like, hey, I don't know you, what's up? And some people they're like, why would I go to a party if I don't know that many people there? And I'm like, that's why you go. Like, I mean, I like talking to people I know too, of course, but I mean, there's something about just like, I've never met you. Can I hear something about you?
Yeah. And I get anxiety to go to a party I have to talk myself into going. And then once I'm there, I'm fine. But even something like Second City, where I met you, because you were my fantastic teacher, that, I want to just talk to people. And there is definitely people are like, why is this weird gigantic girl talking to me right now? And I get very excited and I want to know, talk. And I think that it gets misinterpreted sometimes, but that's again, their story. That's their story of me. And that's not who I am. So they're allowed their story. Nothing I can do about that. But,
sure.
Yeah.
So I just, I was going to bring it up anyway, but she already brought it up. So nice segue. So you have all the, painter, songwriter, podcaster, et cetera. And then you're like, I'm going to try improv.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
That's my brother's fault, Jeremy. So
okay.
Last April, I guess it would have been last March, that I was at my place in Nashville, and I thought, my brother's been doing improv for years, and he loves it. And I have seen him. He's much older than I. I have seen him. He's very shy, although not so much anymore. Thanks to improv, he has blossomed and grown so much, and it's just really wonderful. And I used to go and watch him do his improv, and we come from.
Is this in Seattle?
This is in Seattle.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, my parents are smartasses and quick with a pun, and they're hams and stuff. My dad's very shy, but he's still a ham. Anyway, so this one day I woke up and I thought, man, I'd like to try improv. I feel like I wonder kind of how I could do with the painting, right? And I kid you not, within 2 hours, my brother calls me up and he said, hey sis. I was like, hey, what's up? He said, I was thinking David Rosowski is teaching a workshop here in Seattle for a long weekend, and I'm going to take it. And if you get yourself here, he said, I want to buy you the class for your birthday.
Oh, wow.
And I said, yes, because I tried to say yes to stuff,
Sure.
And I just thought about it. So obviously it was meant to be. So I went to Seattle, and Jeremy and I freaking love, I worship my brother is the best. And it was so much fun. And David Rosowski came up to me afterward. He said, I don't know. He said, I know you live in Nashville. I don't really know what your plans are or what you're thinking about any of this. He said, but you should really do this. He said, you've got a natural talent, which was such a kind thing to say.
Yeah.
He may have said it to everyone. I don't know. But then I moved to California, and, I was like, what? I'm just going to go to Second City because that's where David was, Rosowski. Yeah. So I'm just going to do it. And so that's what I did.
So you didn't take any class or anything in Nashville. You waited till LA.
When I came back from that thing,
Mm-hmm.
Nashville, in a weird turn of events, Nashville had posted a thing, Nashville Improv had posted a thing for open auditions.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, what the hell? I know nothing. Why not? So I went, and the audition was like an hour. We had to come up with characters in the moment. We had to do like all these games and all this stuff. And they're like, congratulations, you got in. I was like, what? So I was now suddenly in this professional improv group.
Okay.
I'd done 1 weekend of improv. And I was
that's nice marketing for Dave Rosowski. I took Dave Rosowski's weekend workshop, and now I'm a professional. You know,
I know, it's crazy. But I knew I was leaving, and you know what I mean. Like,
you already had plans to move.
Yeah. So I said to them, I want to try this out and just do it. So for like a month, I did their shows or whatever. And there was a guy that was one of the directors who was not a good guy, and they ended up kicking him out. Oh. And he did not like me because we kept doing these things where those last man standings.
Okay.
And I kept being when I was he and I would be the last, and then I would be the last person, and he did not like me. Oh, and so I was not enjoying the experience. Luckily, I was not there for very long, and then I moved. So, and I told him, I was like, I'm gonna go do this thing, and
yeah.
So technically, I guess I had 2 weekends of performance before, but not real.
But still, I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, Dave Rosowski is a great. That's awesome that he was your entry point into improv. He's been a lot of people's entry points into improv over the years. He's fantastic.
He's so great, and I love that he doesn't give a fuck.
Nah. What's he got to lose?
And he's okay with no. Like, he's okay that you can know the character. Saying no to the character does not no to the actor. And I think that was such a great thing to hear first as a tabula rasa.
Nice.
And then coming into like your class and Tim Stoltenberg's class and Mark's class, that first, because I did the intensive, the 3
Yeah, at Second City Hollywood, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I was scared. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was like, this is the real deal. Like, now I'm Second City. This is not bullshit, And so I was nervous, and I think we've talked about this on my podcast when you were on. Is that the hardest thing for me was the emotion, the heightening of emotion.
Yeah.
Of anger. That was the one for me. I'm not, because I'm so chill. I've done a lot of work, I had an intense childhood, so it's kind of, to pull that stuff up was a little crazy. But now, and then I thought, I'm going to audition for the conservatory, which I did and got in, which probably, tons of people did get in. And it's been fun. It's also tricky here and there, and then other parts are not so tricky. So it's a constant thing. And I love performing improv. That's like my favorite thing, is that part of it, is the performance part.
Nice.
It's so on a wire, and it could be a dive bomb, or, you have either wings or weighted shoes, and it's so much fun.
I love it. How can people find you?
SusanRuth.com for my website.
SusanRuth.com.
And iTunes and all that stuff. Just always.
And your podcast is Hey Human. Hey Human
Podcast, which can be found either at heyhumanpodcast.com or Hey Human, literally all of the podcast platforms, except for iHeartRadio. I don't think it's on that one, but it is on Spotify. And then if you want to see my paintings, there's a bunch of them at the SusanRuth.com website. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram and all the social medias. So under Susan Ruthism, under Twitter and all that. And then for Hey Human, it's Hey Human Podcast on Instagram and Facebook.
Wow. And I can say I've listened to, I think, at least 10 of your episodes so far. It's just a lovely deep dive into a variety of human beings. It's really nice. I've listened to some, not all of your music. I'm a big fan of, you just got a real talent for singing, songwriting, etc. Check out SusanRuth.com and everywhere she's at, because she's awesome. Thank you so much for being on my show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and I'm sorry I was late to this. Not that they know that, but I knew that.
Well, now they do, and now they're judging.
Well, they can. Thank you.
That's their story.
Enjoy your distancing and stay healthy and sane and all that good stuff.
Awesome. You too, Susan.
Bye.